Q&A session. If I look a little bit punch drunk, I am, because Tammy and I, our day started around 2 o'clock in the morning, didn't it?
Yeah.
So Kit, who was at a progesterone level of 5 and a temperature of 98.3, started to show beginning signs of labour around 4 o'clock. My seatbelt on.
Yeah.
And we had an appointment for a C-section at 8 o'clock, 2 hours away.
Yeah.
So we've been
That's what this is.
Yes, and the babies are in here right now.
Yeah.
Just happy as clams. They were born a couple of hours ago.
Yeah.
And they just had their first feeding with mum before we left to come home for a 2-hour drive. But this thing works beautifully. I mean, it's well, you'll see more videos on all this. Anyway, here we go. Questions. Hello from Florida, Jeff Morgan. I'm trying to buy a puppy. The breeder said that the pups were about a day or 2 early and would not recommend breeding the pup as reproductive organs are the last to develop and doesn't want us to have any problems. Advice on the issue is greatly appreciated. Thank you again. What do you think about that one, Tammy?
That's the first I've heard.
First time I've ever heard that one. I think that's nonsense. I really do. Everybody else can chime in and tell me whether it really is nonsense. But this is nuts. I mean, look, either that, if you take puppies early, you're going to have an awful time. They've got nothing to do with reproductive organs. They just don't live because of their lungs. Here's the deal. The deal is that puppies are taken early don't have the surfactant that's necessary in their lungs to do the transition between being in the amniotic sac with amniotic fluid in their lungs being fed through the placenta versus being delivered and then getting that water out of their lungs and breathing their first breath of air. And typically those dogs start to have problems over the next, typically it starts showing up after about 48 to 72 hours. You start losing puppies. They've got nothing to do with reproductive organs, it's got to do with their lungs. So I think this idea that there's something going to be wrong with their reproductive organs, no, I'm not buying it at all. So, no. Mr. B, approximately what day should we start checking the temperature and start doing reverse progesterone testing? Day 59 to 63. No, you need to do it earlier than that. So let's assume that after AI, 61 days, you'd expect to be about the right due date. That's approximate. Well, 63 days from ovulation. They're the same number. We start taking temperature, what, Tammy, a week early?
It's
five days to a week.
A week early, yeah. Yep.
So start taking it then. You don't want to be taking this, the day that you think they're due because you can miss the temperature drop. And in fact, with Kit here and these babies, this temperature drop was 89, was 99.9 in the morning, and it'd been bouncing around 99.9 to 100.1 for a few days. Then all of a sudden, she took a dive down to 89.3, and then it came back up to 89.2 the morning that we took her in. So, there was someone's crying a little bit there. So it can be pretty short-lived. So progesterone test, there's no point taking a progesterone test until you're getting close, because progesterone level does not tell you how close you are, it just tells you whether you're safe to take puppies. 33mm photo says, why is my French Bulldog shedding so much? Well, that's a Frenchy thing for a start, isn't it, Tammy?
Yeah, well, it could be bathing too, and if you're doing it too often or if you're not doing it often enough and it's oatmeal, you can get some shampoo that's got some oatmeal in it that's great for their skin and their coat. Vitamins, things like this. What kind of dog food are you feeding it?
There's a shedding gene too. So if your dog has 2 copies of the shedding gene, it's going to shed. That's the interesting thing about fluffies. All the fluffies that I've ever tested and all the ones we've ever had don't have the shedding gene, and they don't shed.
I knew that when I was bathing them. I was like, there's no hair.
Yeah. So I think your dog has a shedding gene, and that's the reason really why it's shedding. But I mean, you might be able to help this, like Tammy says, by using some of these oatmeal type shampoos.
We sell that shampoo on our website, www.mybreedersupply.com. We sell shampoo on there with Life Abundance. It's got the dog food and other little products on there.
So Susan Brocksmith's got a couple of posts here. One of them is that she said that so we're talking about making a floor for using our heat system in maybe a custom built whelping box, you can buy what's called Coroplastic. It comes in a 4x8 sheet at Home Depot. You can buy it at Lowe's, but it's a lot cheaper at Home Depot. At Home Depot, it used to be $20. You can cut it with a box knife, and it's great for making a floor because it's exactly the same thing that Dura-Whelp and Easy-Whelp make the box set of. GEBP says, where can I find the lift and kennel on Amazon? Well, the kennel, that wire cage we said we liked, that was from Amazon. I think it's an Amazon Basics, is the name of that one. I think it was...
Don't buy the cheap one.
Yeah, buy the one that's 65 to 75 bucks double door. If you buy one that's 50 bucks, it'll be a piece of junk.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be really flimsy.
Yeah.
The lift also came from Amazon, and if you go look for a 30-inch hydraulic lift or electric lift, you're going to pay about 279 bucks for that one that I got. Neff Ixter, talking about puppies that runny poop. Wants to know what they should do if the puppies are less than 2 weeks old. Give them some canned pumpkin. Do we give that to mum? No, don't give it to mum, you give it to the puppy. So open up a can of pumpkin, put some on your finger, stick it in their mouth, give them a little dollar pop it in their mouth.
As soon as they turn 2 weeks old, start worming them every 2 weeks. 4 weeks with Nemex 2, and
Nemex
2 weeks
2,
and 4 weeks.
2 and 4 weeks with Nemex 2, or the same thing as Pyrantel Paomate. It's a lot less expensive. It's exactly the same thing.
And then when they get 6 weeks, start doing it with Safeguard every 2 weeks. They leave home.
David Larez, how soon do you begin taping puppy legs to aid with swimming? So as soon as the puppies have got their eyes open and they start to move around, which is around 2 weeks old. I mean, eyes open around 10 days, they're moving around 2 weeks. If you see a fat puppy that's walrused out with its legs out and never gets, and the other puppies are starting to get up on their legs, that's the time to start doing it.
Yeah, they start, see that he's got a flat chest, put that on there.
Yes.
But just because they turn 2 weeks old and their eyes are open at 8 days to 10 days, don't just tape them because you think you're going to. Let them move around a little bit.
Yeah, give a chance
watch them. If you're watching them, you'll see which one's the swimmer.
And what you typically see is it's a smaller litter with a big puppy that's getting a lot of milk is the one that's lazy and doesn't get up on its legs properly. And how long do you leave it on for? Well, mum will take the tape off, the other puppy will take the tape off. Keep putting it back on until that puppy's walking around properly. Jeddah says, judges are rejecting the flat face now, and it's good. These dogs are far too many difficulties trying to breathe. Yeah, well, I don't disagree with, this is the problem with any purebred dog. It's being bred for specific attributes that people want, and sometimes those aren't necessarily a favour to the dog. So I think it's true of all purebred dogs that there are some things that we do, if we just let the dogs get on with it all by themselves, they'd all be mutt dogs and they'd probably be healthier. So don't disagree with what you're saying. Jesus Hernandez, do you know what might cause my 5-week-old Frenchies to throw up like water and mush 1 hour after they eat?
How old is it?
5 weeks, I think. 5 weeks old. Frenchies. So the whole litter's doing this. Got any ideas?
You go ahead.
Well, I mean, so one of the things is that, if it's an hour later, I'm wondering whether, so one of the things that you can have is a thing called mega esophagus. This is where you've got basically a large gullet about here that holds food and doesn't drain down into the stomach very well. They eat a lot of food quickly and it stays right here and doesn't get down to the gullet.
But she says it's the whole litter.
Well, I know. So, I'm stretching it a little bit, but my first thought would be...
Sometimes I'm thinking worming.
Well, I mean, so here we go. Here's some different ideas about this. So what Tammy says is worm. Well, absolutely. Look, if you haven't wormed them, worm them. If they haven't been wormed, worm them, because that's a possibility. But the other thing I would do is I would try making the slurry thinner and see whether that might help it drain into their stomach better. I'd give that a shot. And then the other thing is to feed them less more frequently so they don't gorge themselves as much. So I would try that. The worming, if you haven't done it, do it anyway.
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks, exactly. So if they haven't been wormed in, close to 2 weeks, worm them. And make that mixture more of a slurry, add some more goat's milk to it, or even water. And then reduce the amount of food they're eating as well. And then feed more frequently. See if that helps. Danielle Medberry, talking congratulations on lift. My question is, how long do you let puppies feed on mum? Week 1, week 2 to prevent overfeeding. And that'll be finished. These Q&A up. So Tammy, I'm bash at that.
Yeah, oh, I didn't hear. Sorry.
Tammy's punch drunk too, because she's been less asleep than me. I got to sleep driving the 2 hours up here while Tammy drove. How do you stop puppies from overfeeding within 1 or 2 weeks, 3 weeks old? Well, you don't. No, we don't. So, of course, there's ways that you could do this. You could control the whole process, and some people do that. Keep mum and babies as separate. Maybe put them in an incubator.
Why would you want to keep them from overeating? There's a reason why.
Well, let's keep on going. This is look. How can you stop puppies from overeating? The only way that you could possibly, if you wanted to do it, and we're going to argue that you shouldn't.
Right.
The only way that you could stop puppies from overeating is to restrict their access to mum. That's it. It's like you and me. We're getting fat. Guess what? We put a padlock on the refrigerator, and we eat more healthy food. That's what you do. So with your dogs that are getting too fat, you've got complete control over this. Don't feed them table scraps, feed them less food, and you can reduce their weight, I promise you. With puppies, I think this is a mistake. Puppies need nourishment, they need lots of it, and I would not ever restrict a puppy that's 1 or 2 weeks old. I would let that puppy have as much as it wanted. Now, if you've got a situation where puppies are getting driving me, sorry.
What would I do without you watching?
If you get puppies that have got milk running out of their noses, a lot of people ask about that, and we let them get on with it. We just, if it develops into any kind of pneumonia, runny nose, we give them antibiotics. But our answer is, mums and babies should be together 24/7 for the first 3 weeks, and you shouldn't restrict their food. That's it. There we go. That's the end of this one. Kitty puppies in here. Bye. Thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate people who subscribe to me. It helps me, encourage me to do more of these videos. But do remember, disclaimer here, I am not a vet. I'm not a licensed medical professional. I'm purely a person who's been breeding dogs for the last couple of decades. Any information that you got from this video, use at your own risk. There's nothing implied here, and certainly this should not be used as a substitute for advice from your veterinarian or your medical professional. I hope you enjoyed the video. Come back for more of them. Bye.